welcome back from that break. This is still the AM Club coming to you live from the Mix 24 studios, Oleander Street, East Legon, Accra, Ghana. My name is Miriam Uduak. We're about to get into our stories for this morning. Of course, our news review segment is where we're at right now. Now, my guest, Nana B, is already seated. We'll kick off with some very important conversations, ones that we've probably touched earlier in our stories, but we're going to get deeper into these conversations. Nana B, good morning.
Hey.
And then Mohammed's Ghana is stressing you out. Indeed, it's good to see you again.
We are all feeling the reset.
Abi, they are resetting your mind. This morning, your mind has
we are experiencing the reset. We are okay.
Yesterday was your Thanksgiving service for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia.
Exactly.
You were in a different camp. So let me tell me how this entire moving forward with the MP, because you know we had this conversation before.
Yes.
That what happens after the whole primaries. And so tell me what the atmosphere is like with the MPP right now, looking at what you did yesterday and Friday. What is it looking like and how are we moving forward?
Okay, so Mimi, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
And, you know, this peak hours, this vehicular congestion, the traffic, lack of vehicles, in fact, it's becoming unbecoming. The government needs to really do a lot about this situation. And a very good morning to the rank and file of the New Patriotic Party and to every person watching us. So you see, I was here, I've been here a number of times, and I always said that, look, all 5 gentlemen who were contesting for the flag bearership position were very fine gentlemen.
Yes.
So Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia is, without debate, the best vice president you've ever had in the history of Ghana. If you're talking about effectiveness, yes. Because when you have a vice president championing about 33 policies, that is something to write home about. We had Honorable Kennedy Ohene Japan, who I supported, and I would say there are no regrets. Yeah. Because we had a solid message, we had a solid vision. Everyone who followed the campaign could tell that, look, Ken really knew what he was going to do for Ghana. But I mean, this is democracy. So we respect the views of the delegates. We had Dr. Brian, Dr. Educhum, Kwabena Japan, and the rest. But you see, if you follow the election on 31st, people said Ken was going to pull a gun, Ken would break from the MPP, Ken would do this, Ken would do that. But he considered even before it was announced, right at the party office. I was there as she. He said, look, we respect the opinions and the choice of the delegate. We are MPP. So even when Ken was speaking, people were chanting, no, Ken, no vote. And he told them, no, no. What if I had won? And people had said, no, Dr. Bawumia, no vote. What would that have looked like? So he said, no, look, support Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia. He didn't end there. He followed to the national headquarters at Asylum Down. And he spoke over there to, said, look, let us come together. We are one party. I think 3 days ago or 2 days ago, he released a video thanking all delegates. So everything is fine in the MPP. We are a civil political party. We understand the tenets of democracy. From now, we are going to work on, you know, bridging the gaps, you know, tensions flew, words were said. That is what we are going to work on now. And like I always said here, now the focus is about keeping the NDC accountable, keeping them on their toes and working towards winning power in 2028. Because it's just been 1 year, but Ghanaians are already crying and they are already reeling. And when we get into the Conco conversation, I think we say more on that. So for the MPP, we are very fine. The NDC should now focus on this. Because look, even ordinary party elections is now bringing tensions. Oh, yes.
I knew you were going to
Oh, yes, yes. You see.
I knew you were going to
No, you see, they said a lot.
But is it not same conversation of it's all elections?
Oh, look, we even had issues when it came to flag bearership, which was normal. Because, I mean, after going through the 2024 election cycle, it was normal. But with the NDC, Mimi, flag bearer conversations have not even come up. Just party within the party. Looking at even within the party is an issue now with the new directives. If you are an appointee and all that, you cannot contest. Meaning, if you are an appointee, stay in government. We also take our party. Now, when the party goes to opposition, we will show you where the real power lies. That is what is happening in the NDC today. So we are fine. We are very, very fine. And like I said, there are lots of issues to look at now. Because if you look at the plight of cocoa farmers, if you look at the doomsday situation that is rearing up its head in Ghana.
Really?
Oh, yes. Go to so many places in Kumasi, even in Accra. So many people are experiencing it.
I see.
Yes. So many power outages. When you look at the number of people who are unemployed, and every day we are hearing new slogans. Every day we are, nothing is happening. 24 economy, nothing. Women Development Bank, nothing. National apprenticeship. I don't even know which people they are training to that apprenticeship program.
They are launching the course.
And now for the very first time in a very long time, I think for the first time in history, cocoa farmers are also experiencing haircuts. when you look at all these issues, we in the MPP have more than enough to talk about to keep this government on their toes, one, and then secondly, to rescue Ghana from all these optics and rhetorics that the NDC is showing us.
Interesting. Well, I was supposed to attend your Thanksgiving yesterday as a reporter, but we had other things that were had come before.
It was very successful, but when you look at the attendance and the euphoria, it was very nice. Very. The place was filled up. I mean, people were even outside. We are united.
It's the first of its kind for your party as well.
Yes.
It's the first of its kind.
I don't think so.
When it comes to your major delegates conference after that, I've never had anything like that before.
I don't know if then
I'm trying to start a different conversation, but that's for at the end of the show.
All right, okay, that's fine.
But let's move straight into the cocoa conversation. Okay. The minority is asking for the sack of Dr. Randy Abe because, in their opinion, he's performing poorly. Exactly. We've had the chairman of the committee of cocoa and what do you call it? Agriculture and Cocoa Affairs Committee, Dr. Godfred Siedu Jasau. He has also spoken on that conversation and said that it is not a call in the right direction to ask for the sack of Dr. Randy Abe, because he thinks that at this point he's actually holding the fort and the issues are systematic. It has got nothing to do with the individual sitting in the seat. That's his defense, and he says it's not a call they're going to adhere to. But in your opinion, with the way the conversation is going from 3,000 something to 2,000, that's a huge
more than
taken out of
1,000. I think 1,038
plus. Yeah, 1,000 plus.
Yeah.
In your opinion, where could the conversation start from? And again, when we sit here all the time and we have these conversations, I always say that let's look at solutions. Let's look at let's address these issues as young people who want development, not politics. This is a very serious conversation we're having now. That in the first time in the history of Africa, in the history of Ghanaian cocoa farmers, this how much has been taken out of their monies in terms of purchasing cocoa beans from them. It is huge from them. It's going to cost them a lot because growing cocoa is not even that an easy thing to do. And so for them, how are they going to move forward? What are the solutions to these developing problems?
Okay, Mimi, so I think this is a very important conversation. And like you said, it is very important that as much as possible, we put the politics aside and we focus on the real issues. So what are the real issues in the cocoa sector? Let me give you a bit of background. Everyone in this country who follows commodity pricing knows that they are not stable. You see, when these conversations started, I've had to ask myself, so does the NDC know about global prices now?
I was just
does the NDC have the phrase global prices in their dictionary? You see, I sat here at that time with Julius and I was telling him that, look, the primary determinant of oil price in this country is a global price. You saw the things he was saying. Oh, it is government subvention. Oh, it is a buying papa. But you see what we are being exposed now? Mimi, let me tell you one thing. Under John Dramani Mahama, His Excellency, when they handed over power to us in 2017, prices on the international markets dropped from about $2,100 to $1,770. But were cocoa prices reduced under President Akufo-Addo? No. Cocoa farmers were still protected. Government still paid them. Under President Akufo-Addo, we had the peak of swollen shoot diseases. That is why we brought the cocoa rehabilitation program under President Akufo-Addo. We spent billions of cedis in curbing that menace. Under President Akufo-Addo, we even brought the hand fertilization phenomenon, where we had people who were doing, like humans, who were helping with the hand pollination, because that we realized was increasing the yield better. We had all these challenges, but look at how much we took prices of cocoa under the NDC, and look at how much we were giving to farmers under the MPP, and even in 2024. But in 2024, what happened? We had the NDC, championed by the current finance minister, Ato is forcing. Now, I don't know if Ato is still forcing. Telling cocoa farmers that, look, the MPP is cheating you. President Akufo-Addo is wicked. Why should he be giving you 3,600 Ghana cedis? When we come, we'll give you 6,000 Ghana cedis. That's what Ato Forsen said. This was championed by so many people. President Mama himself said that we're not treating cocoa farmers well and that we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But you see, let's not deceive ourselves. And the NDC shouldn't think that, excuse me to say, people are ignorant. You people, when you were saying these things in opposition, you knew that commodity prices are not determined by President Akufo-Addo. You knew that commodity prices have a global benchmark and it can rise and it can fall. You knew all these things. But you made these promises to the poor Ghanaian cocoa farmers and they voted out the MPP. Now you came into power. Today, the NDC is citing two challenges: global commodity prices and debt in the cocoa sector. And it's when you follow some of these conversations, you ask yourself, how is the NDC able to mention some of these things today? Global commodity prices, but it has been strongly alleged that Randy Abe has imported some SUV vehicles and some V8 vehicles. Yes, for directors and then the CEO, his deputies at the cocoa industry. And this was even stated emphatically by the former PRO for Cocoa Board. He's here to respond to that. But it is the poor farmer who should suffer. Randy Abe is taking more than 100,000 Ghana cedis at Cocoa Board. His allowances and other things are in the excess of 80,000 Ghana cedis, but it is the poor cocoa farmer who should suffer. His directors shouldn't be affected. But let me tell you the real challenges, okay, in the cocoa sector and why Randy Abe should be removed. When new people came into power, from January to I think April 2025, then they see by then cocoa prices on the international market had increased from $2,600 to about $11,000, and it was staying within the range of $9,000 to $11,000. That was when cocoa export earnings tripled from, I think, $579 million to about $1.8 billion. What did they say in this country? About Papaba. They said, oh, in 4 months, they had claimed Galamsey lands, and that is what had brought about the increase in yield, and that is what had brought about the export earnings that we were having. How could you have done that in 4 months? It was never possible, but the NDC claimed all this glory. But Mimi, so the real conversation is, I'm a financial economics student. And at least with my little knowledge in asset pricing, I've come to understand spot pricing and forward contract. So the cocoa industry, over the years, this is very important, always deals in forward pricing, especially under the NPP.
Okay. And
we had the likes of Samiji and features chastising the NPP that why are you engaging in forward pricing? Forward pricing because, Mimi, for instance, as of 2025, some of the cocoa we're exporting to the outside world, we're still taking $2,600 for them, even though the price on the international market had risen to $11,000, because we're using forward contracts. Forward contracts in the sense that if there is a certain price that is agreed with the traders for the 2025-2026 cocoa season, that price is locked. So you pay the money to Cocoa Board, then Cocoa Board will be supplying those metric tons of cocoa for that period. So for example, if we agree that we're going to supply 500,000 tons for the next season, then we pay that amount of money. Whether the price falls or it increases, we have already agreed on the price. So you supply based on the price. Then NDC chastise that. But you see, this is trade, this is business. There are always ups and downs to it. When the NDC came into power, okay, this is where the real issue is. Then cocoa prices had risen to about $11,000 on the international market. And for some period, it stayed between $8,000 to $10,000. They stopped using the forward contract. So what the NDC was doing was that they now reversed to spot prices. Spot prices in the sense that, Mimi, when they bring the cocoa to the international market today and it's $11,000, they take the $11,000. But when they come tomorrow and it's $9,000, they take the $9,000. I hope you get it. So they were dealing with the rise and the fall in the prices. So they didn't engage in any forward contract under Randy Abe. So in the mind of Randy Abe, due to his incompetence and his bad forecasting, he never thought that, look, a time will come that the price will fall. He was just living in the moment and enjoying that money. But that is not leadership. Because if you're a leader, you think about tomorrow. Since you know that the price is not controlled by Randy Abe or President Mahama, you should have thought it twice that no, in as much as I may be enjoying today, I shouldn't be focused on the greed. I should think about the forecasting. Because, Mimi, based on the forecast, if I forecast that I'm going to supply cocoa at $10,000 for the next 1 year, government knows that every month I'm getting this amount of money. So when I tell the cocoa farmer I'll give you 5,000 Ghana cedis, even if the price on international markets drops to $100, I don't care. Because the price have already been what? Locked in under the forward contract. The NDC engaged in spot prices. They never engaged in forward contracts. You see, so that is why when the cocoa started dropping, they started suffering because the prices had not been locked. You never engaged in any forward contracts. So right now, since the prices are dropping, you cannot still honor the obligations to the cocoa farmers. You see where the real issues are. But you see, one other thing they did in 2025 was that the Minister for Agriculture came to announce that they are going to increase prices of cocoa by the new season. The new season starts in October. He announced this early 2025. So people came and they chastised him that, no, you don't do this. When you say you're going to increase prices, on what basis are you saying you're going to increase prices? For example, if you're engaging in the forward contracts, you know that, oh, for the next 1 year, you're going to have this fixed income or this fixed revenue. But since you're engaging in spot pricing, on what basis did you make that announcement? Now, that premature announcement did two things. One, traders will start hoarding their cocoa. Because, the Minister for Agri says they are going to increase cocoa later this year. So, psychologically, let me keep the cocoa beans. When the prices go up, I would come and then what? Sell and get more money. So that also led to some hoarding at the trader side. But the government was then forced to come and announce early prices as far back as August because we were not even getting the beans to transport and then get the revenue at the time because of their premature announcements. That is why time and again I have a problem with the NBC when they try to engage in all these optics and theatrics. Because when you engage in these things, in the minds of the people will be hailing you. Your mama says we increase cocoa prices. But deep down, the realities will expose you. Okay. But let me land on this.
Please.
When you even do a comparative pricing, you see, even beyond the farmers, the government itself has a lot to lose. As I'm talking to you, Mimi, when you go to Cote d'Ivoire today, they are selling cocoa beans for more than 3,600 Ghana cedis. Today, you are saying you're going to sell cocoa for less than 2,500 Ghana cedis. Even when you were selling at 3,200, people were still smuggling to Cote d'Ivoire. So today that you are going to sell at 2,400, what happens to the government? What happens to cocoa export earnings? Cocoa farmers, even at the present, we were giving them 3,000 and over Ghana cedis. They were giving their lands to Galamsey operators to mine Galamsey on the lands. Today, you are saying you are going to give them 2,400 cedis. What is the environmental danger that is even exposing Ghanaians to when it comes to the issue of Galamsey that we are fighting so much to solve?
Right.
Your CEOs, your board of directors are engaged in luxurious living, but there's the poor farmers who must suffer. If President Mama thinks about the environment, if he thinks about Galamsey, if he thinks beyond today and the optics and the theatrics, government must be able to cushion the poor cocoa farmers. Cocoa prices reduced under Kufuor. Did we reduce prices? What we did was we kept increasing. For the first time in the history of this country, under Abain Papa, cocoa prices are reducing. And that is the realities we have to live in today.
Thank you very much, Nana B. I'm going to come to you. He spent time going through the entire conversation. So I believe their response to what he has said, to some of the things that he has said, and also some of the realities he's touched on. And I wanted to even start the conversation before he picked up by saying that if we're having conversations around some things like the Forex and things that are in relation to global pricing, can we try to be a little bit more careful? Because this is a warning that he gave here on this platform that a colleague of yours didn't agree. Even I, when I was looking up the stories yesterday, I was like, the president had actually even said in Ethiopia that what we are experiencing with cocoa is as a result of global pricing, which means that we're aware that we're not in control solely when it comes to pricing and some of these business dealings. And so can we be very honest with how we are running this country? Because again, we will one day come to the city one day. And whether or not it's sustainable where we are at. And I do not want to believe that we're not aware that there are going to be actions globally that could totally affect that as well. And so please touch on that with all this in mind. Again, note that you're a young man who has to...
Thank you.
I like to manipulate them like this. Let them know that we can have conversations like our older people used to do on TV, shout, and no results. We need to have conversations to get to a place where we have results.
Exactly. I think in moments like this, we need, as you said, intelligent conversations to be had on critical topics like the cocoa sector. First of all, I'd like to extend my greetings to all the viewers and yourself. A lovely good morning. And then my brother here on a successful Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, I did not see Ken there. I hope all is well.
He's out of town.
Okay. That's just by the way. Getting into the issue of the cocoa sector, honestly, I was so happy when you encouraged us not to have solely partisan conversations about the cocoa sector. And it's true, this is not an MPP or an NDC issue. Getting to the latter parts of 2024, I saw a video, a very alarming video. A young man who had a cocoa farm was digging his cocoa farm, uprooting the trees, and in the video indicating that, look, cocoa is no longer profitable. He wants to dig his own land and mine gold. That was way back during the presidency of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. So it tells us that issues regarding cocoa pricing did not start today. Way back in 2017, 2018, when farmers were lamenting no increase in prices. It's not a today issue. It goes way back into former administrations, and it's easy for me to get into the partisan side of it. He alleged that Dr. Randy Abbey ordered new cars. I can also go back to the former CEO ordering keyboards for 4,500 cedis for his directors to have a comfortable meeting whilst cocoa farmers were out there suffering. So these things go beyond that. In as much as I would like to say that I am no spokesperson for Dr. Randy Abbey. I know his qualities. Ghanaians know who he is. If you watch him speak, you know he's a man of expertise. He has his facts at hand. Dr. Randy Abbey is one of the CEOs, or one of the directors that has done a lot for the cocoa sector. If you watch him closely, since he got into office, he started lamenting way before this year. He started complaining about the previous administration, deals and contracts, cocoa road projects that they had done, how messy they had left the administration of the cocoa board before he got into. So he had started, even way back in 2025, notifying the public on the issues of the cocoa board. And today, I think we are seeing those issues at hand, and he is trying to manage it. But what are we seeing? We are seeing what I call false anger from the side of the MPP. We saw communicators from the party go to the farms, trying to agitate farmers. One of the honorable members of parliament had a press conference trying to incite farmers to demonstrate. Look, the farmers, I heard one of the farmers speaking, and he says, we understand that, look, prices go high and prices fall. But, you know, the pressure of the media in his face and Dr. Bamia's aide, Miracles, right behind him, trying to ginger him to tell the Ghanaians that, look, they are suffering. You know, he was boldly claiming, look, he understands the cocoa pricing. They've been in this business for so long, the rise and fall in global prices. They understand that. The NDC came with good intentions. The percentages for cocoa farmers would be increased. And we did that just in the first year, going up to somewhere around 70%. So it tells you
70%?
that... 70%? Yes.
Is that what you did?
Yes.
No.
You moved from 3,200 to just 3,600 instead of the 6,000.
No, I mean of the FOB, the percentage of the global pricing given to the farmers was increased to somewhere around 60-70%. Yes, not the increase in the prices. I'm talking about the percentages, yes, was increased to that, so that farmers can have the right prices for their goods. So all the same, look, I want to go into the way forward. President Mahama has indicated the way forward. He says our major issue is funding. Most of our funds for cocoa purchases are from foreign sources, syndicated loans. He has indicated that they are going to bring everything back to the domestic side. They are going to raise funds internally and buy the cocoa. This will lead to the ability to refine the cocoa here in Ghana. This is the way forward. Solutions have been brought on board. So I don't see the issue. The MPP rather should be applauding Mahama's ingenuity. Quickly he reacted. A cabinet meeting was called to resolve this issue. He's not laying idle, watching farmers suffer. He has brought a bold solution, a resetting solution to the table. And I think if this is properly implemented, it's going to save the cocoa, but going to save the cocoa sector for many years to come. Essentially, that is what we are doing.
Right. So again, he did mention that they are putting together, conversations are being had on how they could effectively run the cocoa board and make sure that the cocoa farmer doesn't suffer even more.
Yes.
And so we will wait.
Yes.
And see, what we want is a better Ghana.
And he will deliver.
And we will pray for that.
He will deliver.
We will pray for that. It's not a government that is in power, so we are praying for a better Ghana. So you pray with us. You pray with us.
I don't have an issue, but did you know all this when you were promising
you see,
the
so me, I want to
some of the things we
play
say,
the devil's
for
advocate
power.
and say that all of you do the same thing.
No.
When you are campaigning and you're speaking politics, there are times when you you will know what the truth is.
Mimi.
For 8 years we saw the NDC do this. That's why we will sit down right now.
At least we didn't reduce cocoa prices.
You were in power.
We didn't reduce producer prices.
I get what you mean. What you mean, but I'm saying that some of the language that were used in some of the campaign messages. It's something that you all do.
We don't do that.
Maybe if you indulge me,
we don't do that.
Dr. Ndiabe did admit that the situation or he encountered at Kuku Board was far worse than what he had imagined. That was the same for the energy sector.
Oh please,
we talk with the depth you guys had left behind.
We're going to move on to other conversations. Interpol deletes red notice against Ken Ofori-Atta over political concerns, and so the lawyers of Ken Ofori-Atta over the weekend disclosed in a statement that the Commission for the Control of Interpol Files, CCF, had communicated its decision to expunge the alert from the organization's database, according to statements signed by his lead counsel, Justice Kusi Minka Premo of the law firm Minka Premo, Osebunsu, Bruce, Caitlin, and partners there. CCF concluded that the request for the former minister's arrest appeared to be predominantly political in nature and did not meet Interpol's neutrality requirements. And this is why I want to end my reading. Praise be to God. This conversation has become, and I wish at this point my young journalist in this house, Augustine, was here. He had gone over and over, done his research over and over again with regards to this issue, and we were asking for one thing. Why? Is it that at some point we would have Ken Ofori-Atta on red list, on Interpol's red list? Tomorrow he's no longer there. We have not been able to extradite him into the country. Like every other process that as a layman we would have thought that the OSP could have used to get this man to speak, to answer to some of the questions. In fact, as technology will have it, I think there was a point where the lawyers even asked that they do interviews via, and he insisted that it has to be in person. All these options were available to OSP, but OSP also decided to move forward with putting him on Interpol red list. Interpol red list. To the point that now, Interpol itself now has come and declared this. It's embarrassing.
You see, me, one thing I've always said is that when you are dealing with this NDC government, just give time some time and it will expose them. You see, all the things they said, they are being exposed one after the other.
But OSP is not NDC now.
Oh, please. He's doing their bidding. But the report you read was not written by the MPP. Why do you think Interpol is saying that it was politically motivated? Why? So it means that Ken's whole Interpol red notice looks like some sort of political witch hunting. You see, when these issues came up, we were here, and I said that I believe in accountability. When you become a public office holder, Mimi, when Randy Ambi was at Metro TV, Good Morning Ghana, no one cared. But today is a Cocoa Board, and that is why people care. Because it's our taxes that are being used to pay you. I'm not here to say Ken is innocent or Ken is guilty. I don't even have that information. All that we said was that use due processes. But you see, when we tried warning our friends in the NDC, they wouldn't listen. When this OSP started this whole Ken saga, Mimi, how can you issue an Interpol red notice when the person doesn't even have any criminal charge leveled against him? It doesn't even make any practical legal sense. Because until you have exhausted all internal mechanisms, like going to the court, issuing a police arrest and all that, you can't even go ahead to go on Interpol. But for the very first time that he put Ken on the Interpol red notice, he had not even been to court. So we were saying that if you have issues against Ken, if you think you have substantive evidence against Ken, the state has given you all the resources you need. Take Ken to court. How difficult was that? But we saw our brothers from the NDC cheering Kissie Agyapong, and I'm telling you this for a fact. When power shifts in 2028, this guy will start going after the NDC. Because Kissie Agyapong, I don't know, he's trying to play on some psychological game that, because when MPP was in power, you didn't know you investigate Ken. So today you know you go after Ken and you go after Hamid. What is the sense in that? When you leave power today, you start going after the Sami Jeffries and the Malik Basintali, and it shouldn't surprise you. Because see, the sort of things we celebrate and we cheer on in this country is the reason we are where we are today. You declared Ken a fugitive. But see where we are today. You people made people go and camp at the court. You see, when Ken was having his trial for overstaying in the US, then this is sponsored people to go and camp there. Bring Ken home, please. It was you people. Bring Ken home, bring Ken home. Look at where we are today.
led by
You see,
Honorable
when you
Hobson
want to
which is an
expedite
former
justice,
NPP member.
don't do it out of emotions and out of politics. And the OSP has politicized the OSP institution because in the wisdom and the mind of President Kufuor, the institution was not set up for something like this. That is why we appointed a known staunch NDC man who had even been a running mate on the ticket of the NDC before to be the OSP, because we believe in the absolute principles of justice and fighting corruption. But what have we turned the institution in today? Please, President Mahama, he should sack Kissie Jaben from that place. Because, I mean, what sort of joke is that?
And when you make this an NDC conversation, it breaks my heart.
It's not NDC, no.
Yeah.
President Mahama has the power today. I don't have the power to call the OSP.
Initially, he didn't want to do it because he said that there was no substantive reason to remove him, because he was doing, there were processes involved in some of the cases he was supposed to prosecute, and the processes wherein, they hadn't absorbed or...
It's not true. If you follow especially this Ken conversation from day one, you realize that all that the OSP was doing was just a joke. Like I told you, you can't put someone on Interpol red notice when you have not exhausted all internal mechanisms. One, there were no criminal charges against the person. Two, the person had not even been arraigned in court. Three, the person had responded and said, I am not well. But even if you still want me to speak, I can have online meetings. Technology has advanced. If you don't even want that, I can send my lawyers down. Even in Ghana here, Mimi, even in Ghana, you can have a court issue today, and you wouldn't even go to court. Your lawyers can go and argue out your case. So what is the point? I'm not a law student, I'm not a lawyer, but at least some of these basic legal knowledge we know. So what was all that theatrics and optics for? They are AG. You see, the reason I'm saying President Mahama is because their own Attorney General, who was appointed by the President, what did their Deputy Attorney General say? He said, oh, by February or so, Ken would be in Ghana. Today is 16 February, Adam and Valentine, you are still waiting for Ken to come to Ghana. Look, you people should take governance beyond optics and theatrics. Listen, I keep warning them. Take governance beyond optics and theatrics. Face the realities and tell the people the truth. Cocoa is exposing you today. When gold prices start going down on the international market, it will expose you again. When the dollar, the city you are propping and you are depleting our reserves, it will expose you. Stop the theatrics, so NDC, we are warning you.
All right, Nanabi has won
Ghana.
NDC. You're going to move on.
I'd like to respond.
Please. I don't even want you to respond to his.
Yes, just
I wish you don't. I want you to address the issue. The position of the OSP is becoming worrying because all the cases that we're looking at are beginning to look like they are not going to go anywhere. What's happening to Eduba Henenko? This is one of the biggest cases that the OSP has on its hands.
That's Attorney General.
It's about the former finance minister. This is not a joke at all. Yeah. If you accuse this man of about 6 or 7 crimes that he is involved in, there has to be a point where the OSP is justified for going after this man. But where we are at right now is it's like everything is going to go down the drain. Let's talk about that quickly.
I totally agree with you. This is a very, very, very big case involving the former finance minister. Bear in mind, I've stated here previously that the initial OSP and the current OSP were both appointed by the former administration. So any point to or any notion to point towards our current president of influencing certain decisions, I wouldn't buy into that. But one thing I'd like to state is that, look, the Interpol red notice, when Kenneth Riata was placed there, we did not get the intention or no one, or that was not an indication of guilt until he is tried in court. We've called for his trial in court. So until he's tried in court and found guilty by a court of competent jurisdiction, we can't call him guilty, even if he's on any red notice anywhere. He was not found guilty. The same way, being taken off the Interpol red notice does not give any indication of innocence. The trial still needs to be had, and we still need both parties involved in that trial so that we can get to the root of it. Aside the legal issues, the Ghanaians have issues of accountability. I've seen key members of the MPP on TV and give the indication that they are under no obligation to be accountable to the Ghanaians. Bear in mind, they are going to come back to us in 2028 seeking our votes with the notion that if they get into power, if they ever leave power again, they have no duty to be accountable to the Ghanaian people. I think as young politicians, it would be bad of me not to notify the public that this is not the right kind of politics. We anyone who is in politics and gets into government office must have it in the back of their minds that we are accountable to the Ghanaian people. So this whole notion being put up by members of the NPP that Kenny Ofori-Atta owes no duty to be accountable to the Ghanaian people is false. He needs to come and account to the Ghanaian people.
And
there are certain questions.
Then my question will be that then how does the OSP and the NDC, now you are not in control of the OSP in certain ways, but how does the NDC intend to make sure that these people, because it's not only is it an OSP conversation, there's oral too. Yeah. Oral is supposed to be going after people they have accused or have found reason to think or to assume that they have been involved in corruption or corruption-related activities. How then do you intend holding these people accountable?
Look, with the issue of back to the finance minister, we've seen that Attorney General take steps. Now, the available steps to him, I believe he is doing them. He has there's an extradition request to the United States for Kenny Ofori-Atta to return, and I have always been of the idea that, look, this thing should be hurried. There's been several calls for tribunals to be set up for certain officials because there's been huge amount of corruption. So many cases. There's some at the National Service scheme.
What's happening with the National Service case too? There are so many.
So we are also calling for expedited trials for some of this. Yes. So we are calling for expedited trials in some of these issues. So we will keep calling for them. But you know, Ghana is a country of laws, and there are rules, and there are certain things we have to get over. Step by step, due process must be seen. No matter the amount of years it takes, due process must be done, or due process must be taken. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, gentlemen. This has been an extensive conversation on both topics, but we continue the conversations online, MX24GH on all social media platforms. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, MX24GH as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you. And also, congratulations on a very successful Thanksgiving service. I pray that...
We are waiting for the NDC.
Which Ken was absent.
Yes, Ken was absent. Where is he?
No, I said it from the beginning. Yeah. He's out of town. Ken has conceded. Ken was at the national headquarters. Yeah. His code is being
very convenient. At this time, he's out of the country. Very convenient.
Was there anyone else who was from the NPP leadership that wasn't there, so that we can make a case?
I don't.
You can't remember.
But I don't know if President Akufo-Addo was there.
No, President Akufo-Addo was there.
The current leadership of the party, most of them were there.
But he's part of the leadership.
No, look, he's a former president.
Akufo wasn't there either.
Akufo wasn't there, so
these are former presidents.
He's part of the former people.
Ken is a leading figure in the
NPP. What position does he have in the NPP?
Ken has a huge following in the NPP.
No, what position does he have?
If the NPP wants to win power, they can't win power without Ken.
Okay,
but what they can
we hear you. But gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. Now to you out there, like I said earlier, conversation continues online. Do make sure to connect with us as we learn and grow together. Make sure to be a part of this beautiful family. Connect with us on all social media platforms. MX24GH. It's been a wonderful start of the week. I pray that we keep this momentum up. Let's keep building this country with every little knowledge that we have, every little way we can. Let's make sure to help build this country. My name is Miriam Uduak Mensah. We're back again tomorrow from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Have a great day.